Hi everyone, this is audap. Let's continue our game of Hermitage Strange Case Files on Nintendo Switch. Or we can just continue to listen to KKNES, the Smooth Jazz channel, with some of your favorite artists as guy playing saxophone. Up next, guy playing trumpet. In other words, there has to be a purpose to this. Even if they did it reluctantly, if the ritual called for it, they would have done it. Who knows what they thought might have happened if they didn't follow the instructions. It's barbaric, that's what it is. You can look up some of the stuff the Aztecs did during their sacrifices. For them, it was perfectly normal. That's a great example. The values of good and evil can't be defined out of context. This is particularly evident in the case of religious activities, and this seems to be an organization that thinks it's doing good. Death is an end in itself. Do you mean things like that? Death is still too general a concept. Time, place, identity, goal, cause, manner. Some of these points may be more relevant to the killer than others. In our case, the killer went to great lengths to ensure that the actual death would take place at a specific location. Something's off here. For now, the moment of death is all we need to find out. I'm glad I asked you and Scarlet to help with the investigation. And then there's this whole thing about the rocks. Placing rocks all over the city while simultaneously trying to observe the stars to find the right moment. That's a lot of work for a ritual. Sacrificing so many lives as a formality, without any actual certainty or reason. The process itself plays a very important role. The actual goal itself is so obscure that I don't think anyone truly knows what the point of these practices is. In other words, no one knows what actually works, and nobody has enough professional knowledge to be the judge of that. Even her own neighbors, how could she do such a thing? I'm afraid there's no turning back for that old lady either. Why do you say that? Well, if my suspicions are correct, it's quite a long story. Reasons for Hildy's involvement. Well, that's a harder one to figure out, I think. So we have conclusion, rituals by the Visionary Society, and then gargoyle, because they want to get gargoyle, or gargoyle. Signs of massive blood loss, a giant shadow flying by, strange hissing sounds, the murders that have occurred in the Kongyang neighborhood, and the eyewitnesses' reports are consistent with the description of a being named Gargoyle in the book Shrines, Gods, and Messengers. This being, which relies on its wings and some sort of light near its lower abdomen to travel between planets throughout the universe, is an important messenger. The author of the book took note of the following. People feed it with blood and flesh and live with its comrades. Having lost so much knowledge in exile, they had to sacrifice their offspring in a barbaric way to summon the gargoyle. Then we have Hildy's secret herself. According to Lorraine, Hildy's husband and son are long dead, and the two of them are the only ones left in the entire building. However, Hildy has always been reluctant to accept this fact. I was thinking that her husband and son are still alive. Yes. Final struggle. A few decades ago, this country was nowhere near as stable as it is now. Things were terrible, especially for intellectuals and academics. They were persecuted because of their status and suffered a lot of misfortune. I think Hildy's husband must have been one of them. Her husband had a bad disposition. He came to this country from overseas, and I heard that he had a lot of trouble before they moved here. People knocked on their door and ridiculed them every day. She's the only remaining member of her family. Returning home after studying abroad carried such a gigantic societal stigma back then. Honestly, it's a blessing in disguise that he lived long enough to see the construction of that building in the first place. He returned to his homeland, full of expectations, but unfortunately others weren't as open-minded as him. and his return was met with rejection. That's enough to shatter even the strongest of minds. He might have made some connections abroad, or maybe those people already had an influence on him before then. Who knows? Either way, they agreed on the plan, and they managed to pull it off very covertly. The photo is wrapped in a wooden frame that has been painted white. The glass is spotless. The paper inside, however, is beginning to yellow. In the photo, a young family of 3 is facing the camera. The expression is a little unnatural but happy. The only woman in the picture resembles young Hildy. Strange scratches cover the face of the 2 adults as if someone wrote on them with a ballpoint pen but managed to erase the ink somehow. The family gradually became part of the Visionary Society, accepting their teachings and participating in their activities. The society gave them a simple task, preparing descendants for the ceremony. A ritual was passed down among the elders of the Visionary Society, in which they asked the gods they worship to send them emissaries, or servants, whose spirits are summoned from afar. However, these spirits require a vessel. Therefore, an infant is used to house the emissary's presence, so they may develop and grow. All of it is pretty brutal, but the 2 of them were clever enough to pull it all off. They continued to work and live like ordinary citizens, making friends, hiding their identities, then a seemingly natural pregnancy followed by a vacation, until the day the baby was born. The Visionary Society was right on schedule, and years of patience were finally bearing fruit. The Society may have promised them something, or they may have hoped for something in return for their services. With the successful arrival of the servant, they hope that these wishes may be granted. However, that would require the servant to descend successfully. What's the matter? Do you know my David? Oh, sorry, I just happened to see the picture and thought he looked familiar. That's okay, if only my David were as polite as you. He turned from a little boy into a man who won't ever come to visit. You don't want to be like him. I'm sure she told you about her son, David. I'm afraid she'll have to prepare a wreath if she really wants to see him. In fact, she's the only member of her family who's left. In less populated areas with fewer means of passing on knowledge, verbal retellings of rituals are among the most dangerous way of transmitting information. The Visionary Society may not have been a sufficiently large organization, and it is clear from the depictions in the books that they failed to discover the most vital pieces of information. So, you're saying that the ritual failed. We have no way of knowing exactly what happened, and none of those involved left any record of it. The only thing we know is that it caused a great deal of damage. At least her husband and eldest son were never to be seen again. As a result, the abandoned building became a dark reminder that people in the neighborhood would rather not talk about. No one wanted to keep living in that place except for one desperate old woman. Building companies didn't even want to continue with the construction of the remaining residential buildings and turned their attention elsewhere. People began moving out of the neighborhood, and the landlords had to lower their rents. Tenants are getting poorer, and the conditions are growing steadily worse, a vicious cycle that has ultimately turned the district into an urban legend that even the police don't want to get involved with. The funny thing is that the current residents are so focused on complaining about the shoddy housing situation that they don't even care about how it happened in the first place. So it turns out the state of the buildings is actually the result of the whole neighborhood's neglect. In order to calm things down, these stubborn local inhabitants have kept their mouths shut until now. They refuse to acknowledge the facts or accept help of any kind. But it wasn't supposed to end there. The current situation speaks for itself. The ritual wasn't a complete failure. Although the loss was irreversible, Hildy kept the child. The gargoyle grew up and turned increasingly inhuman, as described in the records. In order to supply flesh and blood as nourishment, the Visionary Society left her some funding. That way, even with her low income, she'd be able to hold on for a long time. They wanted to meet the gargoyle and take him away. The price was high, but that meant that the reward would be even greater. But she probably didn't expect the Visionary Society to be imprisoned for theft and murder. The members were arrested on scene and couldn't escape decade-long prison sentences. It wasn't until this year that the Society's key players were released again, which means the gargoyle isn't dependent on Hildy anymore. So whatever the Visionary Society is planning, this is their last shot. Leaving this world, the one thing we failed to achieve. Once the ceremony has been completed, you are taken to a whole new realm. Believe it or not, there is a place that is truly free of pain and sorrow. Spiritual transcendence? No, it's a purer kind of detachment. Staying in this world has no spiritual or physical value at all. It sounds like running away. Of course you wouldn't understand. Just help us and no one will get hurt, okay? That's why, after being released from prison, they immediately sought her out again, ready to continue the plan. Yes, and that's why I think this series of murders has another reason. What could this ritual possibly accomplish that would be worth wasting so many years and taking so many lives? Trying to fix the damage by doing more damage is like borrowing money to gamble. A vicious cycle with no turning back. Who knows? This might have been destined to end in tragedy from the very beginning. But a ceremony for our god's servants would not be small. To put it bluntly, a few human lives would mean nothing compared to those mysterious entities. So if they had their way, I'm afraid it would be a matter of time more than... So if they had their way, I'm afraid it would be a matter of more than a few lives. So the question remains, what do we do? We need to take one more trip to the Kangyang district. People aren't stupid. It's only a matter of time before the police focus their attention on the place, but with a whole series of murders. Now that Mrs. Lee's body has been discovered, it'll happen sooner than later. Do the police know who she is? It's hard to say, but I think I was the only one there who recognized her face. It'll be bad if someone finds out that you didn't report it, right? It doesn't matter. With everything that happened yesterday, it's best to proceed with caution. Who knows what else they'll do? And without preparation, asking the police for help will just make things even more dangerous. It's not too late. Thanks to your efforts, we have a small head start. But why go there? You think something's going to happen in 2 days in a row? If they were in any way sane, they wouldn't have done what they did to Mrs. Lee. They might be growing impatient and trying to get things over with before someone comes knocking at their door. But even the most cautious person will leave a trace sooner or later, which they did. It was foolish of them, but something forced them to act right after a stranger came to visit. I'm sure they'd like to move somewhere else, but for whatever reason, they're bound to that building. We haven't seen what's going on that roof yet. So, whether they're planning on doing something tonight or not, we have to make sure either way. If you end up in a suspicious situation, find a way to surprise them. Meko, how sure are you about that lock? The chain is too thick to be cut without large pliers. The locks are so rusty that picking them is bound to be a hassle. However, this is a perfect situation to simply use force. If the cylinder is rusty, the lock is probably jammed into position. I have the right tools here, but it's going to be noisy. After all, I'll be confronting the cylinder with a hammer. That doesn't matter. I doubt it'll be loud enough to wake the other buildings. Give me some cover. I don't want to find myself stuck on the roof as soon as I unlock the door. A simple text message is device. How about I tell them I've changed my mind and that I'm willing to make a deal for the book they want? You don't value your life all that much, do you? What makes you think they won't just come for you and take it by force? Don't make such a big deal out of it. I'll keep them away from that building, and if we're successful, it won't matter who has the book in the end. Fine, I'll go get the tools. Wait. Hold on a second. You're just going to rush in there? Of course not. I can't leave this place. I think you're simply adding to the confusion by saying that. You're smart enough not to risk your life if you don't have to, so my efforts won't be in vain. As far as risk goes, that's just part of life. If there's really something fishy on the rooftop, I'll try to get it on film and hand it in to the police. I'm fine with a bit of vandalism, if necessary. If they hadn't been carrying out their plans in that building, we wouldn't have known about any of this. But now I'll be able to delay them for at least half a day, which is worth a lot when you think about it. It's too big of a gamble. This is a complete make-or-break approach. Time's running out. I prefer a different approach too, but the stars won't wait for us. The Visionary Society was released from prison at the beginning of the year, but the murder spree only began this month. How long do you think it'll be until they reach that crucial moment in time they're looking for? We don't know how many stones they need for the ritual, but if 4 people aren't enough, and considering the current frequency of the murders, I'm afraid the next one will happen sooner rather than later. The police may not be able to stop the ceremony in time. Waiting a few more days isn't going to make this any easier, and I don't want to stand by as that group continues their murder spree. So you're pushing your own people into the fire? You're letting a little girl poke a hornet's nest for you? She knows what she's doing. She'd better. If it's really as you suspect, and this society has spent over 20 years raising a monster that sucks people dry, and it remains undiscovered in a residential area, where do you think it's been hiding all this time? Save your breath. I'm not going to fight that thing. What makes you think you have a choice? I'm serious. Can't you guys just take an extra 5 minutes to think about what you're planning to do? I think it's all been said. No need to repeat anything. Wait a minute. Hear me out. Damn it. Am I the only one here who's worried about your safety? What's the matter, Mr. Detective? This thing's been a mess from the start. There's no safe way to go about it. The only one who's worried? Man, of course I'm worried. I was the one who found the bloodstains over there. Or have you forgotten? In that case, I should what? Sit around and wait for some clueless individual to collect the bodies and clean up the whole mess? Don't say we're worried. I'm scared to death. Whatever happens tonight, you can be damn sure I'll have nightmares about it later. I've seen 500 times worse than this, and without you having to remind me how shitty and messed up life can get. Get a grip, dude. We have more than a few murders to solve, and right now, nobody has a better shot at dealing with it than us. I'd avoid putting pressure on Neko in the future if I were you, or past calm reasoning at this point. The more troublesome everything is, the more calculated and careful our approach will have to be. Compared to everyone else, Neko is the expert here. I can understand if you can't wrap your head around it, but at least stay out of my way, okay? Just what the hell have you been through? More than you think. You've dealt with murderers before? More than one, if not for the manager. Never mind, forget it. You look like you're not even in high school yet. And? Got a problem with that? No, it's just... I don't understand. I don't understand where your courage comes from. Of course you'd be the one to ask that. Uh-huh. Do private investigators get paid well? Not really, no. Do they have a good reputation? Not really. Will the police haul you off to prison if you don't keep working this case? It might cause some problems, but nothing quite like that, no. So why are you still here if you say you can't do anything anyway? I'm afraid your mentor already knew about all of this, but he's far away now. He had neither the means to stop those people, nor did he know what would happen next. That's why he chose to run away, because the victim's family would be busy hating him for refusing to help instead of getting involved themselves. Think about it. He's smart and he knew what he was doing, but we're not like him. I've had so many nightmares and I don't want anyone else to ever have to go through that. This isn't about whether we actually have the ability to pull it off. This is about making a conscious decision to do whatever we can, because we can't just twiddle our thumbs and ignore it. Doing nothing will lead to nothing. You're like us, dummy. That thing with the camera? You didn't half-ass that job, did you? You want to be better than your mentor and prove something to yourself, right? Forget it. All this talk isn't good for anything. They haven't seen your face yet, and if you don't want any part of this, go home and get some rest. Time is of the essence right now, so I can't keep playing counseling with you. Bye. That's not the point. Hell, things aren't supposed to be like this. No matter what you're going to say, someone has to do something about it. Yes, you're right. Someone has to. If any funny stuff happens on the rooftop, you'll try to get it on camera and hand it over to the police, right? Don't forget the second part of what I said. If I have to do some damage, I will. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. What do you want to do? Well, I have to. Neko, pass me the bag with the tools. Wait, you're not going to. The more troublesome everything is, the more calculated and careful our approach will have to be. I have to admit, it makes sense. So let the person most suited to the task do what he does best. Surveilling and videotaping, you say? Sounds like a job for an expert private investigator, if you ask me. Justin walks off into the night. Winter is getting closer, and it's too early for the sun to be up yet. His coat protects him from the morning chill, as always. It's heavier than usual because of the many things that have been stuffed into the pockets. Be prepared for anything, anytime. That's one of the most valuable lessons Justin picked up on the job, but now he's reached a point where he knows that simply being prepared isn't enough. Neko slipped him a few tools and weapons of questionable origin, but Justin opted not to take them with him. His job is to solve problems, not cause them or make existing ones worse. Also, with everything he knows about the case, the only good defense for when things get out of hand would be to run away. Trying to fight and resist would be foolish. He expressed a keen interest in the pencil Cecil used to ward off the silkworm last time, but the store manager wasn't on board with that idea. It may not be effective against other otherworldly entities. Justin doesn't know anything about the intricate workings of that stuff anyway. He'd rather be cautious than rely on items that might turn out to be completely useless. It's better to work at your own pace and trust your own skills than to depend on crutches like that. Standing in front of the building once again, the whole scene strikes Justin even as weirder than he imagined. A deep growl echoes from above. It sounds a bit like a horse's neigh, but more drawn out and distorted. Something is wrong. Nobody living by could sleep through a sound like that. It's 4 a.m. and yet there isn't a single light turned on in the neighborhood. All the more reason to act now. The bizarre, unsettling atmosphere draws Justin in, paralyzing him for a moment. The sound is coming from the rooftop. Time to go up there and check it out. Justin pushes open the building's door and enters. The moment his feet touch the floor, Justin feels extremely tired. What the... His whole body feels heavy, his joints hurt, his mouth is dry, his head aches. It's as if someone has woken him up from a deep slumber, the only difference being that he wasn't actually asleep. No wonder none of the locals are awake, Justin thinks to himself. He doesn't have the faintest clue how this works, but at this time of the night, when people are already naturally tired, anything to increase that feeling must work like a charm. Justin has learned a lot at Hermitage over the last few days, including being open to things that cross the boundaries of common sense and logic. He's close to falling asleep, but his drive keeps him going, even if only barely. So, you've come out of hiding. The more drastic the measures, the more desperate they must be. For Justin, that's bad news. The detective ascends the stairs as quickly as he can. He still doesn't have all the answers. Did he come to this forsaken place to face the unknown, to bring the killer to justice, or to simply confirm his suspicions? He still doesn't know. He wants to do the right thing, but what is right? The chains that were still firmly in place at the door yesterday now lie scattered across the ground. The way the chain was cut suggests that whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. There's no time to hesitate. Justin carefully pushes the door open to spy through the crack. What? Nothing could have prepared him for this. About 10 people are on the roof, dressed in normal clothes but wearing strange masks. Justin can't make out any details in the dark, but what he sees is more than enough to arouse suspicion. They are split into two groups. 3 of them are trying to tie up Hildy. The rest of them are standing around the wooden shack in the middle of the rooftop. They are chanting and throwing around some sort of dust. The side of the shack is covered in blood. Something must have happened here very recently. None of them are shouting, but the atmosphere is unbelievably tense. What should he do? Justin does his best to stay calm. His heartbeat is so out of control it is making his chest hurt. He's angry at himself for not realizing it sooner. An old woman with nothing left to lose is the perfect target to take advantage of. Once they are done with their plan, she will have outlived her usefulness. But the store manager and himself have been so focused on their own theories that they have been blind to any other possibilities. Just as some phenomena can't be explained by common sense, the truth can't be labeled as such without actual evidence. Premature theories and conclusions can't replace that. This isn't the time to think about who's right or wrong. Justin stretches his stiff fingers and pulls 2 items out of his pockets. Ever since the first day he started working as a detective, he's known that he may be thrown into extreme situations. Still, up until now, he's never had to make use of any of these gadgets, and he's doubting their usefulness. Still, this is better than nothing. Justin shakes his head to regain some focus, then lights the fuse on the firecrackers in his hand before placing them next to the door. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The firecrackers blow up loudly next to the door. What's going on? It's now or never. A bright flash with a color temperature of 5500 K floods the rooftop. The firecrackers are so bright that they'd be blinding even during the daytime. Their facial expressions must be pretty ridiculous right now. Seeking a moment, Justin kicks open the door and rushes over to the group of 3 who are dazzled by the light. 3 of them cover their eyes in pain with no time to react to Justin rushing by. Who's there? Keeping the others at bay with his shoulder, Justin runs up to Hildy and pulls her towards him. Hildy seems to have lost all her energy in the struggle. Never in his life would Justin have thought that a small old lady could be so heavy. You okay? Don't worry, I'll be alright. Hildy bows her head a little and mumbles something, but she relaxes her tight grip on Justin's shoulder, much to his relief. Most of the cult members are still blinded, wildly flailing their arms around in an attempt to dispel shadows that aren't actually there. Some are furiously rubbing their eyes, trying to regain their sight. Justin knows from past experience that they'll recover soon. He takes a look at Hildy to make sure she's unharmed, then picks her up and prepares to escape the chaos. But he's too slow. The shack in the rooftop center collapses, or better yet, explodes. It swells up like a balloon filled with too much air, and loudly bursts apart. Shadows darker than the night engulf their surroundings. It looks somewhat like a bat, but there are obvious differences. It's huge, covered in holes, and has a sickly appearance altogether. There's that sound again, like a nightmare version of a hoarse neighing. There's an opening that may or may not be its mouth. Justin can't tell because the sound doesn't seem to be coming from there. The air around the creature vibrates and shakes, particularly around its lower half. The creature has 4 limbs and wings on the upper half of its torso. That's about the only description Justin can give. We always explain new discoveries based on rhetoric, or similarities to things we already know, but how should we describe something that no human has ever witnessed before? Gargoyle. Although he only just learned that word, it's the only name that comes to mind right now. It's enough to instantly fill him with dread. His blood is boiling in his veins and rushing to his head, but his bones feel strangely cold, a sensation that pierces his whole body. Regret, remorse, irrationality. Every fiber of his being is telling him to run, but his trembling legs are stuck to the floor. Trapped in his own body, the paralyzing fear takes control of him. His heart sinks at the realization that he's looking at something that doesn't belong to this world. The man-like, horse-like, bat-like creature is struggling to get rid of the rope netting around its body. The ritual must have worked. The creature appears weakened, and the rope netting restraining it seems unusually strong. That could be why the creature, though much more powerful than any human on Earth, is struggling to free itself. Some of the debris that were sent flying come crashing down, burying several people under them or knocking them off the rope altogether. The creature's strong legs are moving about, no longer fully restrained by the ropes. The roof isn't that big, and the agitated creature is thrashing and whirling around, smashing everything within its reach. Oh, hell no. Hildy is trembling, which is enough to make Justin regain some of his focus. It's now or never. Justin moves towards the exit, while shielding Hildy with his body. No ordinary human being could ever stand a fighting chance against a creature this big. Maybe a gun would even the odds a little, but the small-time detective, such as Justin, isn't allowed to carry one. Justin is annoyed by his impulse to grab other people on his way out. They knew what would happen and wouldn't have gone to all that trouble for nothing. Confronting them now would be nothing less than stupid. Justin is still overwhelmed by everything that's unfolding in front of him. Though he has vowed to be more open-minded when it comes to things that don't seem logical at first, it's nowhere near as easy as he thought. If the store manager was here, maybe. An intense pain flashes through his body. The cold metal embedded in his arm makes his muscle fibers twitch uncontrollably. The pain is so bad that for a second he thinks his entire arm has been torn off. Justin didn't even notice the silent sneak attack from behind. Though not big in size, the sharp metal shape easily pierces Justin's flesh. The severe pain makes him shiver and break out in a cold sweat. He can barely remain standing. Why? Hildy ignores Justin's agonized cries as she pulls out the sharp metal object. Then, she turns around and heads towards the disorganized cult members. It's obvious that she doesn't have any intention of helping them. Ignoring the debris and clutter swirling around, she sneaks up to the members under the cover of all the noise and confusion. Once close enough, she either stabs them or pushes them towards the center of the roof, right into the eye of the chaotic storm. She doesn't seem worried at all about the gargoyle hurting her, or maybe she just doesn't care. It's her! We need help! The rope won't hold much longer! Where? I can't see anything! Ah, it's coming! The body is violently flung through the air, sliding across the ground and leaving a long trail of blood behind. It probably isn't enough to kill the man, but he surely won't be able to walk for a long, long time. Though his legs are still shaking and trembling, Justin attempts to move and get closer to the victim on the ground. The man is holding a small dagger in his clenched fist. The twisted blade looks fragile, making it apparent that it's a ritualistic dagger more than anything. It's covered in strange carvings and coated in an unidentifiable liquid. This dagger obviously serves a bigger purpose than stabbing people. The man on the ground is unable to resist at all. Sorry, let me just borrow this for a moment. At least the dagger looks more useful than Cecil's improvised rune pencil. At last, Justin has something he can put to good use. Since the excruciating pain is starting to fade a little, Justin can move his arm again. Though it was small, the barbs on the piece of metal blade pulling it out. Though it was small, the barbs on the piece of metal made pulling it out excruciatingly painful. The chaos continues to unfold, with an increasing amount of unconscious cult members piling up on the ground. Though they tried to regroup to restrain Hildy, the creature's intervention stopped them dead in their tracks. Justin hides the dagger in his sleeve, which gives him a small sense of security. Everything is in shambles and out of control. Hildy is still on a rampage, but the fact remains that she's just an old woman. This makes the gargoyle the biggest problem right now. Get out of here! Yeah! It's time to act. Justin takes a deep breath and tries sneaking up behind the creature, though he's unsure if it even has actual eyes or how much the firecrackers would have affected its ability to see. Coming from behind should allow him to move closer without being noticed. Hidden in the darkness of the night, Justin makes his way to the corner of the rooftop towards the door. Its thrashing and loud growls are accompanied by hissing gasps. It's obviously in a weakened state, but that's no reason for Justin to do anything rash. Closer. Just a little closer. Justin takes one careful step at a time. According to the store manager's theories, the failed ritual should have severely weakened the creature. Though still vicious and a force to be reckoned with, it's exhausted and at its most vulnerable right now. There's nothing he can do. There's no way he could face that creature one-on-one or protect the people that are being ravaged. Run away is the smart choice. He has to get back to the bookstore and tell the store manager what's going on here. See if he can... Yet another painful sensation. Already weakened by the previous attack, Justin's body is now close to failing him. Something hits the ground behind him. He must have hit something really heavy with a sharp edge. At least that's what the back of his head says. How? He can hear something coming closer, but he can't move at all. Heavily concussed, Justin's brain is no longer in control of his body. The heavy blow to the back of his head has robbed him of the last remaining ounce of strength. Just listen to me very carefully now. It's your decision to leave. That's fine by me. However, there are a few things I must say to you. It's my responsibility as your mentor. Don't ever consider yourself a hero. The detective's job is to solve a problem that already exists. You can't stop a tragedy from unfolding. The best you can do is to stop it in its early stages. If you continue down your current path and maintain your naive idea of justice, sooner or later you'll run into a problem that will be too much for you to handle. There's no telling how that'll end for you. Is that why you gave up? I only do what I can. I never overestimate myself. That's in my best interest and everyone else's interest too. How so? You're not solving anything by running away. Some wounds never stop bleeding. Do you have what it takes to bear that pain? That's just the way things are. Too many people think they have what it takes. Forget it. You probably had enough of me talking about this anyway. I'm not going to force anything on you, just as I'm not forcing myself to do things I know I'm not equipped to handle. I hope I've taught you well enough so that one day you can make a living with it. Try not to sprint ahead all the time. Sometimes you have to take a good look behind, so as not to get lost. Go out there, do your thing, gain real-life experience, and heed my words. Once you've done so, let's meet up for a drink one day. My treat, of course. I can't wait to see what kind of man you'll become by then. I'm really looking forward to it. A cold wind is blowing across Justin's face, almost cold enough to freeze his watery eyes solid. Though he can barely make anything out, he's relieved to discover that he's at least still on top of the rooftop. That's good. Anything else? Not so good. Everything is in ruins. A few loose bricks and pieces of wood are all that remain of the shack. The only thing with a semblance of order up here are the human bodies lined up along the roof, arms side by side, head to heel to heel. Somebody must have positioned the bodies that way. Justin's head is still throbbing as all manner of strange thoughts race through his mind. Ugh. Trying to identify the source of the pain, Justin turns to take a glance at his left shoulder and stares right into the big evil eye. Huh? One of Justin's questions is answered right then and there. The gargoyle does, in fact, have a mouth. Right now it's wrapped around Justin's shoulder, gnawing away at his flesh. It's in an indescribable pain, freezing him right down to his bone marrow. His body is powerless to do anything against it. It itches as if a syringe has been rammed into its shoulder. However, Justin soon realizes that nothing is being injected into him. Quite the contrary, something is pouring out of him and is hastily being absorbed by the creature. Blood. Suddenly he understands why the bodies are lined up on the ground the way they are. Let me go. He lashes out and attempts to kick the creature, but to no avail. Lifted into midair and struggling hard, a big chunk of flesh is torn out of his shoulder. The pain is enough to nearly make him pass out again. Oh, you're awake. He can hear Hildy's voice coming from behind him. You weren't moving at all. I thought you were dead. Just hold on a little while, okay? The blood won't flow if you're dead. That would be inconvenient. Hildy's slow and casual tone sends shivers down Justin's spine. You. All of them. Oh, you mean these guys? She kicks the body lying on the ground closest to her. It collapses in on itself as if completely torn apart and drained. Its arms roll away over the ground. That one's already served its purpose. I'll clean it up later. Oh my, now there's no one left. Who's going to help me with that? She rubs her neck as if she's thinking about something, but abruptly stops herself. Never mind. I'm sure I'll find an efficient way to go about things. The creature's wet tongue wriggles as it lets out short gasps, almost as if it's responding to Hildy. Do you plan on finishing the ceremony? Ceremony? Oh my, it sounds so refined when you say it that way. It has to be finished, wouldn't you agree? Otherwise, all this effort would have been for nothing. She picks up the kitchen knife lying on the ground. Justin saw it back at her apartment, but it had fewer scratches back then. Stickly, thick blood is dripping from the blade. Hildy stares at it, so lost in thought that she doesn't even pick up the rag that's also lying on the ground. Although Justin's vision is blurred and he can't see much, a chilling aura is emanating from Hildy that clearly communicates her manic, obsessive thoughts. Face it, there's no way to go through this on your own. You've already failed. Let it go. There's no point in being stubborn. Don't worry so much about other people. I may be old, but I can remember everything just fine. Every single step, what to do, how to read it. Feel like I've seen it play out several times before, though I can't remember where. But do you really know what this ritual is for? They used you. Even if you succeed, do you really think that it will bring back your husband? Please calm down and think it over. I can see what you're worried about now. Hildy drops the kitchen knife and walks up to Justin, who is still being suspended in midair by the creature. Then she wraps her wrinkled, wet hands tightly around Justin's throat. Huh? It's okay. I heard everything. These people can't be trusted, or else they wouldn't have dragged my family into this. Hildy's whole body trembles as she seems to recall a happy memory. The time and place both need to be picked carefully, and a bunch of people need to serve as stepping stones for something far greater than themselves. I can't let all of it have been for nothing. Over these last 2 days, all of us were in a hurry to make sure everything was ready for the big moment. We barely got enough people together, but the ritual is fragile and prone to fail if we are even one person short. Naturally, I wanted to be included. I wanted to be part of it. Whatever happened to respecting an elder's wishes? But there is always a way. There's still a chance. Justin's blood vessels are close to bursting as he tries to stay awake, but Hildy's words are starting to sound more faint with every passing second. What do you want to do? David says he just wants to go back. Huh? But he's in bad shape. He can't even take a single step without gasping for air. I blame myself and his father for not taking better care of him. We should have fed him better. All I need is those people over there. They can help. David will finally be able to eat and feel better. He spent the last 10 years withering away, feeling hungry every single day. I'm old and frail. I don't have much time left, and this might be our last chance. David, your son, should have been part of the ceremony. If he doesn't find a way to talk sense into Hildy and make her snap out of it, he's going to die right here and now. Justin's vision fades and his eyes flicker. The last remaining air he has left in his lungs, he utters a few words. How do you want to bring back somebody who's already gone? What do you mean, bring back? Hildy loosens her grip a little as she stares at Justin silently. Her eyes are darting around as she looks very confused all of a sudden. What are you talking about? My David is right here, isn't he? The two of them are obviously alone. The store manager mentioned that Hildy is the only surviving member of her family. That means it's not their son who will bring forth gargoyle, but Justin almost forgets to struggle as he pieces everything together. Now then, let's proceed as planned. With a big smile on her face and a tight grip around his throat, Hildy continues to choke Justin. Just as he is about to lose consciousness, Justin sees tears forming in Hildy's eyes. So, this is your family's fate. His clear, sober thoughts make him regain some strength. He no longer looks Hildy in the eyes. There's no need to anymore. You can't stop a tragedy from unfolding. He was right all along. Hildy ignores Justin's remark and tightens her grip. You're just spouting nonsense, boy. There's no need to worry. Once David has eaten enough, nobody will ever ask questions again. Nobody will get in our way. No more interruptions. Just me and my David on our way to see his father. Hildy hums a strange off-key melody in a deep voice. Her arms are shaking. Justin can sense the decades she spent in loneliness and despair, and right now her strongest emotion is relief. It makes Justin more determined than ever. Justin tries to stay calm as he can, gritting his teeth in an attempt to ignore the bite in his shoulder. Do you want to know something? I'm nearly there. I think I'm almost ready to believe what my mentor told me. What are you talking about? Hildy doesn't understand what Justin's words mean. Unintentionally, she loosens her grip a little. She leans in closer, waiting for him to repeat himself more clearly. Justin doesn't miss the opportunity. It's nothing. We just all take a look at our past at some point. Bend the knees, lift your legs, hold your breath, and focus all your energy on your lower back. And then release it all at once. Yeah! Even though he is suspended in midair, his kick still has a strong impact. Bearing the full brunt of the impact, Justin's ankle throbs with pain. Justin's unrelenting kick sends Hildy tumbling backwards, tripping over the bodies she herself had lined up along the roof. She ends up a few steps away from the rooftop's edge. The store manager's research was correct. The gargoyle does indeed possess some kind of intellect. Ignoring the prey still dangling from its mouth, it focuses all its attention on Hildy, the only person it recognizes. Exactly the kind of chance Justin's been waiting for. Although a ritualistic dagger isn't the same as a miniature camera, its size is roughly the same. This is what Justin prepared for. He twists his wrist to slide the dagger out of his right sleeve. Grunting with pain, he wraps his left arm around the creature's neck. Then he stabs his dagger right into the creature's eye. Justin is nearly sent flying as his field of vision suddenly turns upside down. What happened there? Targeting the eyes won't be enough. To end this once and for all, Justin needs to hit a more lethal spot. Justin knows what to do, but it's hard to actually pull off. He holds on tight to the dagger. The strange liquid on the blade that was used during the ritual is flowing down to the hilt. Soon the hilt will be too slippery to keep holding onto it. The important question now is where to stab it next. Though the creature is injured and in bad shape, a prop like this could never compare to an actual weapon as far as effectiveness is concerned. Stabbing and cutting the creature without a clear goal would only cause flesh wounds and damage its skin, and Justin can't afford to waste time on futile attacks. Damn it! Stay down already, you foul beast! Oh no. They may look damaged and worn, but the creature's wings work just fine. It extends its neck and soars upwards, high into the sky. A huge jolt, and everything around Justin shakes and trembles, passing by him faster than he can process. And just like that, the horizon disappears. His blood feels like it's boiling, and his blood feels like it's boiling, and it very well may be. His internal organs feel like they are being crushed by his own ribs. He can feel his skin tearing. Darkness extends all around him, a shadowy abyss, deeper and darker than all of his worst fears combined. No human could fathom their own insignificance when faced with the infinite vastness of space. He doesn't know what to do. A voice in the back of his head is telling him what lurks within this dark, infinite space, but he can't think straight or do anything right now. The pain becomes almost too much to bear. The gargoyle seems confused, twisting its head to look around and flapping its wings on the spot. It resembles a child that's lost its way. Humans can only survive outside of the atmosphere for a very short amount of time without a protective suit. Justin read something about that in a science journal once, although the exact number of minutes escapes him. He knows that he certainly doesn't have long. Most of his time is already up. No. Ignoring the pain in his lungs, Justin climbs up the creature's back to provoke some kind of reaction from it. It opens its mouth without making a sound, right before its wings start to spasm. Justin knows that whatever is happening can't be good. And he is right. Without prior warning, the rapid descent begins. The rough landing sends both of them rolling across the rooftop. Nothing about this is normal. Justin feels like he was stuck in a pipe and thrust out of it by building up pressure inside of it. It's as if he was propelled towards the ground by a jet engine. Yet somehow he came out of it unscathed. Just before hitting the ground, everything slowed down. The sudden halt and change in speed made him sick to his stomach, like coming to an abrupt stop at a high-speed elevator. No! David! Hildy is standing in the same spot as before. That means little time has passed since the ascension. A great distance, but a short journey. Justin shakes his arm and counts the fingers on his hand in disbelief, just to make sure he's actually alive. Neither he nor the creature would survive another trip like that. The creature is on its knees next to him. Its chest is heaving, and it seems just as exhausted as Justin. No matter how harsh the crash was for it, it survived. Though badly injured, it slowly makes its way towards Justin, never letting its prey out of its sight. This is a battle whose outcome ultimately depends on sheer resolve and determination. Justin desperately tries to move in any way possible, supporting his trembling legs in a staggering stance. His eyes are set on the door. His body is too weak. The fight has taken a huge toll on him. Even though he's moving, the door doesn't seem to be getting any closer. He can see the creature's shadow rise up behind him. A shadow flies by, dangerously close to Justin's cheek. In an attempt to stop him, Hildy threw a brick in his direction, which he barely managed to dodge at the very last second. Dodging the brick comes at a price, however. Justin stumbles and feels the rough concrete connect to his face. Oh no. The creature doesn't idly sit by. Sensing an opening, it immediately approaches Justin with raised claws, ready to tear into his flesh once again. Justin can count himself very lucky to have avoided this attack. The gargoyle extends its damaged wings once more. Somehow, the foul stench coming from the creature is even more putrid now. A deep growl issues from the creature's throat as it moves closer to Justin's face. It seems sure of its imminent victory. This is the chance he has been waiting for all along. Liquid shoots out of the creature's eye towards the sky. It howls in pain. This could be the attack that finishes it off for good. It lashes out in a fit of fury, but anger can't make up for its impaired sight. Its rush attacks miss Justin and smash into the ground next to him. Still in pain, he manages to lift himself up a little. The dagger broke in the struggle, but the short part of it is still intact. Is sharp enough for but the short part of it that is still intact is sharp enough for an attack. Ha! Got you! Justin fiercely thrusts the dagger forward. He has never hurt anyone or anything before in his life. It all feels weird to him, but desperate times call for desperate measures. This is the only chance. The only logical choice is to... the head actually kind of makes sense, but maybe it's not the head. I don't want to kind of ruin this one. Let's see. Let's go for the belly. We've already got the thighs, and the belly's where its guts are. It kind of had a fat belly too, so let's do it. It has bird's wings, but I doubt they're much of a use in a cosmic environment. As soon as it leaves the atmosphere, it makes use of other body parts to move around. According to this book, the corresponding organ is located in the lower abdominal cavity, which is difficult to identify by appearance alone. It seems to directly affect the space around it, like a fish slicing through the water and propelling its body forward. Honestly, I'm not sure how that principle is supposed to work. I suspect that it's not something a human mind could grasp. Being a servant of a greater entity, the gargoyle only descends from the heavens when summoned. If such a being has really been a hero for decades, there must be a specific reason for that. Either it hasn't fulfilled its mission yet, or its means to travel have been blocked, yet it's leaving it stranded down here. Whatever the reason being trapped here on Earth for so long, I'm afraid this is a little more serious than just a bird with a broken wing. Although Justin wasn't there in person, Neko gave him the details to prepare him for this. Mere moments ago, escape seemed like the only viable option. This piece of information, however, changes everything. Justin quietly thanks Neko, then raises his arms. Take this. Swinging the dagger in an unpredictable way ensures that it connects with its target. The creature desperately tries to shake its body in an evasive maneuver, but Justin is close enough to hit its target anyway. His hunch was correct. The agonized creature is flapping its wings erratically, whirling up a storm of dust and debris. Justin musters up all his strength he has to hold the dagger steady as it slices through the creature's abdominal area. He just doesn't have it in him to hold it any longer. His strained wrist gives way as he is moved aside by the creature's heavy body. A deafening roar makes it clear that the gargoyle is in terrible pain. In its wild struggle to get rid of the dagger, its head bashes right into Justin. Ugh. Perhaps the pain is preventing the creature from sinking its teeth into Justin. The impact from its head is almost enough to knock him off his feet. Justin feels as if his organs are about to burst. He does his best to try and breathe steadily. The creature pays no mind to Justin as it twitches and flaps its wings. Blood is gushing from its lower abdominal area. No! David! Hildy drops her weapon and carelessly rushes towards her son with a worried expression on her face. David, are you okay? Oh, my poor David, let me see. There's so much blood. I'll help you. I'm here for you. Are you in pain? Talk to me, please. Tears are streaming down Hildy's face as she drops to the ground and anxiously examines every single wound on the creature's body. It's a truly bizarre sight, and through it all, the gargoyle remains perfectly still and calm. The scene in front of Justin is utterly strange. It's as if a child is being taken care of by its mother after having been in a scuffle. If not for all the murder and madness surrounding it, this might actually have been a sweet sight to behold. Justin watches as Hildy and the creature snuggle together. Peaceful and calm, the gargoyle slowly flaps its wings up and down. And then it sinks its teeth into Hildy's shoulder. What? A dark shadow rises up as the gargoyle takes off into the air. Justin is the only one left standing. He can do nothing but look as Hildy is lifted away. Stop! Justin almost trips over as he rushes towards Hildy, but he can't reach her in time. David! David, what's wrong? Hildy clearly doesn't understand what's going on. Shouting, kicking, and screaming, she can't do anything to stop what's happening. The gargoyle's wings are now fully extended. Justin can't tell if it's real or just an optical illusion, but they seem to have grown even bigger. Dark liquid is dripping onto the ground and forming puddles, although it's hard to tell if it's human blood because of the darkness. It sure smells like it. Don't you dare! In a flash, the gargoyle rises up and instantly disappears into the night sky. Making yourself believe a lie is both the easiest and hardest thing to do. You can't understand why Hildy acted the way she did. Maybe she convinced herself of the truth she so desperately wanted to be real. Though the roof is large, the sky is infinite. Suddenly, boundaries no longer exist. The unfathomable has suddenly become reality. I have to run. Justin's desperation finally gets the better of him. Oh my, you're not doing too well, are you? Who's there? You'll probably end up being the hero for this and steal my limelight, but that's okay. What he said. The creature comes crashing down from above in an instant. Its whole body is glowing as it stretches. Its shape is violently elongating. It looks as if somebody is forcefully shoving it down a drain pipe. Wait, what's going on? The creature struggles and manages to regain its posture for a moment, but there's nothing it can do to stop what's happening. The process repeats itself. This time, however, the creature's struggle is futile. Flesh and blood rain down from above. The creature won't let go of Hildy even now, refusing to be separated from her. Hildy? Justin sprints towards the rooftop's edge. Looking down, he can see a deep, dark abyss opening up from around the building. No. Justin is at a loss for words. My assumptions seem to have been right. The ritual is never actually completed. There's that voice again. Justin just doesn't recognize it, and the person it belongs to doesn't seem inclined to introduce themselves. The person's words seem even more vague in the dark of the night. Summoning the gargoyle is a delicate process. It is mostly about guiding it correctly, since it could easily lose its way otherwise. Even its most devoted worshippers should pay great heed to it upon its descent. It comes as no surprise to me that things turned out as badly as they did. These people made mistakes at every step along the way, with complete disregard for even the most crucial aspects of the process. Even if it takes 20 years, what is destined to happen will happen, though it is hard to guess how capable people will be at that point. What did you do? Suleiman's dust, the only real way to stop the creature. While you were tussling about with the gargoyle, I managed to sprinkle some of it on it. The only thing I had to do was recite the spell. All of this sounds very alien to you, I'm sure. What's with the sour face? Is that the expression you give someone who just saved your life? That's not the kind of thanks I expected after cleaning up such a gigantic mess. The lighthearted attitude is apparent in the man's voice, and Justin is getting angry. Cleaning up the mess? You can't be serious. Don't you see the creature still carrying a person? So what? Don't tell me you had a better plan that I just so happened to interrupt. The man's eyes are glinting in the dark, filled with a sinister glare. The tall man sneers, placing his hand on Justin's shoulder. Let's be serious for a moment, young detective. You probably weren't expecting any of this, am I right? What are you trying to say? The world is a twisted place, more messed up than you ever thought possible. Now you've caught a glimpse of it. If you can't handle it, might as well end your life right here and now. The end is the end. There's no turning back. You don't have a lot of choices. Either you close your eyes and accept it, or end it all as quickly as you can. Unlike you, you're somewhat of a diamond in the rough. It would be a shame if you never reached your full potential. Don't understand what you're trying to say. That's enough serious talk, at least for now. You must be tired. Huh? Sweet dreams. Wait a minute. All right. Some exciting stuff there. Why don't we stop it there? This is audap. You've been watching Hermitage, Strange Case Files. Does it actually save? Sometimes I don't know if it does or not. It's a little funky that way. On Nintendo Switch. Well, who knew it was actually going to be a real creature? I wasn't expecting that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.